I want the player to feel those incredible moments when the Bond music comes up, bringing the player into that world, and that's the kind of stuff that I tried to get into the game.
No way.
So I've been a fan since about age 12.
Oh yeah, I love James Bond, and I've watched all of the movies. I'm kind of a big fan of James Bond.
The very first thing I do is sort of immerse myself in the theme when I begin designing a game. In this particular case, I knew the material really well. My history with Bond goes back to, I was 10 years old, and the movie was Goldfinger. In the context of 1964, no one had seen anything like that.
Any fan of a George Gomez game is going to love this thing.
I have a portfolio of games that have appealed to people over many, many years. Well, I've been working about 40, so I guess I have a style now.
It was cool to work with him because he's got a good vision of what he wants his product to be, and I think that's kind of inspiring.
I begin sketching, literally, old school, and that helps me get ideas and out of my head and explore things. You know, some early stuff. Originally I had the entire center of the playfield was going to be an underwater area, and I was also trying to figure out a way to get the DB5 to run down a road. Once I have an idea for where I'm going with the things that I want to turn into toys in the game, I then sketch three-dimensionally physically. I'll cut up plastic, I'll mock stuff up. You know, the original jetpack guy is like a G.I. Joe that, you know, I mean, just representing the scale of the guy.
George had this idea of this rod system that would pick up this ball and it would travel around the playfield, and then you could drop it off into 6 spots.
This is the original mock-up for the flying guy, right? You can see that, you know, he was gonna land at one place on a playfield, move to another. You can tell this would take up a lot of space, and so, you know, I ended up changing it.
In the end, that whole jetpack man can move in any position it wants in that arc.
Here we have the 3D prints of the underwater guys, Bond and a SPECTRE diver.
When you shoot the left saucer, it will light up an underwater fight scene, and there's 2 sculpted scuba guys fighting there, and they wiggle around, and there's a flasher on there.
You can see the amount of detail in here is tremendous. Bond actually looks just like Sean Connery. When I lay a playfield out, there was always a section designed for the novice to interact with. It is the Bird 1 rocket in Bond.
And the rocket is a bash toy, so there's 3 drop targets in front of it. When you lower the 3 drop targets, then you can start hitting the rocket.
So this is the original sort of mock-up. The ball hits the rocket recenters. It's a fun target to hit. There's a lot of interesting ball interactions around it, which are new to me and I think new to pinball. You know, this is some thinking on the DB5. You know, how do I get the ball out of the DB5 over here?
The balls kick out through the roof of the DB5. There's an escape hatch at the top. It ejects the ball up through the DB5 onto a wire form return that feeds back to your right flipper. We were able to pull content from 6 James Bond movies.
From all of the Sean Connery films. And we use it throughout the course of the game.
So we had a lot of stuff to go through and choose and try to pick out what the fans of the franchise would want to see.
We use Bond's one-liners, we use a lot of, you know, really kind of fun stuff from the films. You know, a lot of the action sequences. Of course, the villains and henchmen play a big role. I draw rules in very broad strokes. I scope out the high-level progression, and those guys dig into it.
There's 24 main modes in this game, plus 4 wizard modes. Each movie is represented with a villain mode, a henchman mode, a Q branch, and then a SPECTRE weapon. Each one is unique with its own set of rules and goals. You have to play all the movie modes to light that movie's insert. So when you get through all of it, you light all 6, and then you get to the final wizard mode, which is Her Majesty's Secret Service.
So we designed Insider Connected in such a way that the game teams will interact with it at the most basic level with achievements, but they can do lots of other things.
This is the first one from scratch that we had to think about achievements as we were designing the game. We currently have a little over 100 achievements in this game. There's a lot to do, and we're not done as I speak this.
I decided that there are going to be special things that we're going to do. So, there's going to be secret missions and things like that that sort of manifest themselves in the context of Insider, but they interact with the game.
The nature of the James Bond movie is like a lot of action. There's car chases, there's fights. A lot of those really lend themselves well to different game modes.
Bond. James Bond.
If you're a fan of James Bond, you'll like this game because it's got all of the big elements that you remember from all the movies.
There's a lot of interesting shots. There's some new stuff he's done, a couple throwbacks to his past, favorite things that people really like. There's really a lot to get excited about. It shoots like a dream, and it doesn't feel like any game you've shot before.
The simplest concept in the game is the notion that the player should experience the elements of a Bond film. That is essentially the magic of a pinball machine.